Gonna do a real quick review of my black powder collection, and I'm gonna kind of do it in a timeline because my reasoning for getting these guns was basically to learn the technology and techniques throughout the historical development of firearms. Okay, so what we're going to start off with is I got two matchlocks here, and we'll also get into it. We're going to have to discuss also guns made in India for different reasons, but matchlocks, you're either going to get an Indian made gun or you're going to have somebody make you up one. And now granted, I started this stuff back in 2014. So what I wanted to do, I wanted a matchlock, and you have to have somebody make one for you. And I found a maker because I wasn't impressed with the quality of the guns from India. So when it came to matchlocks, I guess a guy out there were actually two men that would do it were known, but I went with John Buck because a friend of mine had a few replica weapons made by him. So I went with John Buck with this one here, and this here is also the oldest example. I guess he said that this is a copy of something. The date on this is like in the 1490s. Okay, so this takes us right back to when they discovered America, and I believe this is a Spanish musket or something. I forget the story on this, but this is somewhat of a copy of a gun that was found at an archaeological site, or so the story goes. But 1890, or I'm sorry, 1490s, the date on this. So that's why I kind of got this gun. And also John Buck was, a known gun maker, they call him. So we got the one matchlock. Now I wanted a wheel lock, but I couldn't quite afford a wheel lock because we're looking at about a $3,000 to $4,000 ordeal, and there is a man that makes exact wheel lock guns. I mean exact replicas. He's in Europe, and this is, when I contacted him, the only thing I could afford was this snapping matchlock arquebus. Okay, and I believe this is copied from something that's in a museum over there in Europe, and this is all handmade by one of the or probably the only person left in the world that will make you an exact replica of a wheel lock gun. I couldn't, because like the wheel lock locks, he gets like $2,000 for just the lock alone. So when I contacted him, I wanted him to make me an arquebus. He said we can start off small with an arquebus. And this is a few years ago. He's become quite famous. And his name is Bolik Matinjacic. I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. Bolik Matinjacic. And again, I had him make this for me, and this has a trigger on there. There's a sear in this, and a spring, and a trigger. It's really a neat gun, one of a kind piece. And just so you know, the difference between this gun and this gun is like $1,000. Okay. So, and also I wanted a gun from this maker. He's actually made a name for himself, and he's pretty famous right now. And he works out of the southwestern region of Poland. And if you want him to create a gun for you, each one is custom made, and he uses his historical references. And I mean, he makes some beautiful stuff. It's like a 2.5-year waiting list. Now, going back to these older guns, you had to find a maker. We have this English doglock musket. Now this was another maker that was around at the time, and this gun was made by Leonard Day. Now Leonard Day was, his claim to fame was he made a swivel breech gun or something. I mean, he was a gunsmith or gun maker of notoriety, but he also had a standard catalog. There was some older guns, and they were to a specific region or something. This one here is an English doglock. He made matchlocks. He made like some, from wherever he lived in New England, he made some copies of Dutch-based guns of that time period. And this brings us, okay, so this was 1490s. This gun is a design from 1540, and this is getting us into the 1600s here with this. And plus, the reason I got this gun is I wanted one with a fishtail on there that lines. And surprisingly enough, I bought this thing. I've never fired it, so that's going to be something new. And if you look, it's kind of marked there, if you can see it, L Day. So this is from his standard catalog of guns that he made. There were 4 or 5 types. Unfortunately, Leonard Day has passed on, and no longer is making these guns. So now, you know, these are collector's items. And the quality on these weapons here, him and John Buck's, is pretty good. Leonard Day's quality is pretty high. Okay, where was I? Sorry for the interruption. So, in terms of quality-wise, Leonard Day made a nice gun. Okay. And Bolick, this is a custom masterpiece. Okay. And actually, out of all the guns, I ordered this, paid for it from Europe, and received it faster than any of the other two. I had to wait months and months for these guns here. John Buck, this gun is, it's serviceable. I fired it. You know, he welded the plate on there and that. And there's a sight there. Was compared where Bolick's gun, that flash pan is actually mortised into the barrel like they were on the original. It wasn't welded on there. So there was a bit of a difference. And also, I don't believe John Buck, he was online, you could find him, and he would take orders. I don't believe he's making guns anymore. I don't think he's deceased. But I did find something online about him that he had an apprentice. So I think he may have retired from the gun making business here. And this is another one. Pretty good barrel. Another octagon round like it should be, much like this here. Okay, these are the early ones that I got into, and these were all done by private makers. You can't just order any one of these 3 guns. And actually, I don't believe you can order, other than something from Bolick, the other makers are no longer making guns at this time. So let's move on. Okay, next up is a Pedersoli model 1777 French musket. Actually, this was the first black powder gun that I bought over 30 years ago when I decided to start getting into this hobby. And why did I go with a flintlock? I don't know. That's just what it was. And I remember this gun, I bought it from Dixie Gun Works, had it sent to me in the mail. And I think the earlier French model they had correctly to be like a Revolutionary War gun were made in Japan, and they had like welded breech plugs and that, so I decided against it, and I got this one even though it wasn't a correct model for the American Revolution. All the French muskets are quite similar other than barrel bands, sights, and things like that. 69 caliber smoothbore. So this was like one of the first long guns I got in the black powder field. And I've had this for over 30 years. Now this firearm at the time cost me $600. I believe it retails for about $1,500 now. And also this gun was the first YouTube video I made. A 28-second video was me taking a shot with this, and I was trying out YouTube and testing out how to upload videos. My first video I made in 2010 or 11 was with me firing this weapon. So a lot of firsts with this one. Okay, next up I get into the Civil War, and this is a Euro Arms, and it's an Enfield 1853 copy, and I believe it's the 2-band. I guess they got the long 3-band, 2-band, and actually a musketoon. They got 3 different sizes of these. I remember I went to a gun show and some guy had this thing sitting there looking depressed, like he was never going to sell it in a million years. And I said, I want to learn how to shoot minié ball. Now, I've never fired a round ball in this thing. I've shot this a lot. And that's where I got into learning how to use Civil War style muskets. And I really enjoy shooting them, but again, I had this one here, which is Euro Arms, and I have no idea who made it. I did have an Antonio Zouave copy of the Remington musket, and it worked, but the sights were off. It didn't shoot well, so I would have had to go and modify the sights to get it to shoot where I wanted. So I ended up selling that to a reenactor who bought it from me. And these things here also nowadays are extremely expensive. I'm not quite sure. I didn't check. They're about $1,000, if not more, depending on who made them and what model. So we're going to take this one out and shoot it. And I'm trying to get my hands on a Pedersoli Springfield 1861, so we can kind of run it side by side. And now we'll move on to some originals that I have that we're going to include in this. In keeping up with the Civil War, these are actually mill surplus guns from the Civil War. And so enough of the repros, now we're going to get into the real deal here. These are 2 Austrian rifles, or muskets rifles. They are rifled. They're like a 71 caliber. I forget the name of what they originally were. Munster 1840 something. And they were 2 blocks. But when the Austrians decided to get rid of the 2 block type of deal, they went and converted these things to a percussion gun. As you can see there, they cut the back end off and put this percussion style lock on there. And these were bought during the U.S. Civil War and issued to troops because we ran short of weapons. They were buying up all the foreign weapons. And the top rifle here, this one is called a Garibaldi rifle because not only did they sell them to the U.S., Giuseppe Garibaldi bought a bunch of these, and I think he tried overthrowing something down in South America and starting his own country. So that's how the name got there, the Garibaldi rifle. So this was pretty much surplus and available on the market back in the 1860s as a secondary weapon or for discount mercenary work. So we got a Garibaldi rifle, and then we have this little cavalry carbine with a 19-inch barrel on it. This one is actually in pretty decent shape, and I wouldn't be afraid to fire this. I don't think it's seen a lot of use. There you get to look at the business end of that. This rifle needs some work, so we're going to do a video on how to tune up the gun. And this rifle has seen some usage. The rifling isn't as sharp, but I believe both of these are in condition to where I can fire them once again, and that'll be fun. Get us out of the replica and into the actual antique guns. So there will be more videos made on this. I got these as projects. This one I paid it's in nice shape, but I paid a handsome price for it. This one has some issues, and the sling loop is missing in the bolt, which kind of goes through a section and helps attach it to the stock. I have to replace that, and I have to do some work on the hammer. It's kind of loose, and somebody replaced the nipple. It's a non-standard one, so now we got some repair work and to clean it to make sure it's usable. But that's our actual Civil War guns. Mill surplus of the 1920s. Okay, we'll go on to handguns next. Now we'll wrap it up with my handgun collection, what I have now. I've had some bought and sold. This is what I ended up with. I recently picked up a Queen Anne pistol by Pedersoli. I bought that from a pirate, actually. And the reason I got this one is because I didn't have a flint pistol, and I'd like a flint pistol, and it was kind of a opportunity knock, so I grabbed it. We have the Colt Navy 1851 in 36 caliber, which is a nice gun. This was a fairly new one I got from Cabela's. Okay. This is an 1860 Army that I bought used in an auction. And this is an older one. Okay, I forget, probably could be from the 70s or 80s. That's the one we had trouble with and we worked on. So this is in 44. Now this gun here, I did buy this 30 years ago. This is a Euro Arms Rogers and Spencer. And the reason I bought this gun is I couldn't get an original. I had a chance to buy an original, and they were manufactured up where my hometown was. The office was in Utica, but the manufacturing plant was in Willowvale, New York. It's a real nice gun. It's pretty close to the original design. The Rogers and Spencer's solid frame, which I kind of like the solid frames better than the older Colt open frame guns. And now even these are no longer made, and these are kind of collectible and desirable. People buy them. And then these two here are Remington 1858 models. And what it was, Cabela's had a sale. And I mean, I got these things with club points, and I think I paid like $200 a piece for these things, and they were brand new. So this is what gets me. I mean, when times are good, these black powder guns get no recognition. They get their resale value once they're used was kind of crappy. But the thing that's getting me now is people are selling these things used for more than what they retailed for, which is weird. So I bought the long barrel version and the short barrel version because they were on sale. And these are excellent shooting guns. They're more recent. Like I said, I've had that for 30 years. I don't know how long they've been out of production. And this one, again, probably a 30-year-old gun. These ones from Cabela's I bought in the past 5 years. And I'm not quite sure it's Queen Anne. The guy, basically he carried it as a decoration, but it is a functioning pistol. And we're going to go out and shoot that and have some fun. So that wraps it up for what I got, and I'll do a little closing to this video. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of the black powder guns that I kind of have right at the moment, and as usual that changes here and there. If there is any of these more unusual guns where you can't get them made anymore, that you guys would like a more in-depth video or overview and a video to take a closer look at one of them and talk about them, just leave it down in the comments, because some of them are kind of common, like the 1860 and that. And even though I know there's a lot of videos out there, some of these guns are a bit more unusual. And you know, like the matchlocks and that, you don't see a lot of videos on them. And like I said, some of the guys that the gunsmiths that made them are no longer in business, one way or the other. They've either retired or passed on. So you know, leave it in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the little tour of my collection as it stands now. And you know, stay tuned, guys.